Yesterday, the youngest known victim of Jimmy Savile, a 9-year-old Boy Scout, was accused the presenter of sexually abusing him backstage at the BBC after he appeared on Jim Will Fix It.
This followed the show's director last week revealing he found a young girl in a state of undress in Savile's dressing room.
Well, one man who has kept his silence on such shocking allegations until now is former Jim Will Fix It creator and producer Roger Ordish. Roger knew Jimmy Savile for over 20 years and worked closely with him on every edition of the TV show. So welcome and thank you for coming in today.
Thank
I know that you've jetted in from France to see us. You watched the documentary. What did you think when those allegations started?
I was absolutely shocked. I was shattered. I was surprised that I had not been approached by the programme, but that was not the important thing. Yeah.
Well, you worked with Savile for, as we said there, over 20 years. So describe him as a man. What sort of man did you work with?
I worked with a very private man who compartmentalised his life into his cycling, his charity, his television, his radio, and the various compartments didn't really meet. I dealt for a short time in each week that we did the programme with Jimmy Savile, the television man.
Would you say he was a friend?
I don't think anybody was a real friend. I was as close to him as anybody, but that's not very close.
Did he not stay at your house one time?
He did stay in my house one time, and it happened to be, this is with hindsight that I realised it, that he stayed in our house and slept in the bedroom next door to my 14-year-old daughter. And that, I hope, is some indication of how we had no suspicions of anything of this nature at all.
So because a lot of people have come forward saying that actually around that time there were rumours, everybody apparently seemed to know about this, but it seems to be some sort of cover-up, allegedly. You're saying that you knew nothing of this. You'd never heard these rumours?
You hear rumours about everybody famous. There must be rumours that go around about you two. And
well, not rumours of paedophile, not rumours of being paedophile. I think there could be rumours of all sorts of celebrity, salacious rumours that go around, but a rumour as strong and as powerful and as horrendous as that, I'm not sure.
No, I didn't hear that. We were aware that Jim had a predilection for younger females, but not necessarily underage.
How were you aware of that?
Well, I think things he would say, you know, in his usual kind of chat up.
What sort of things would he say?
Oh, you're very beautiful, but nothing obscene.
To who? I mean, did you see him say that to younger girls?
Yes, but these are girls who were young females. They're not children.
So these were girls who were under the age of 16?
They could have been 14 looking like 18, but they were not children in my definition of the word.
But 14 is a child.
It is, yes. But
well, we'll get onto that in a moment, because I want you to tell me what the studio days were like. When you were working in the studio, how would a day like that work for him?
Well, it was very frantic. By agreement, he was with us for the shortest time possible. He would arrive after lunch. I can't remember the exact time. First thing he did would be sit in his dressing room with me, and I'd go through what we'd done. He was virtually asking me, what have I fixed this week? So I'd say, it's this and this and this, and it's in this order, and these are the people that you'll be meeting, and these are the things that you must say to explain what the next item consists of. And then he'd be whisked out onto the studio floor, because we hadn't got long. He was there at 2, and we did a recording early because there were young people on the programme. We recorded at 6, and you know how much, how busy it is to get that done in time. And he had to see the pre-recorded items, the inserts, because he hadn't seen them, and he had to rehearse where he would be when. And
so a busy studio day, a normal studio day. How much time would he be alone in his studio?
I don't think
in his dressing room.
I don't think he'd be alone in his dressing room at all, because there was always somebody there. There was wardrobe, there was makeup. The researchers had to take him through the people the fixies.
So how do you explain then in that? And you've already said that you were aware that he had an attraction to, as you said, younger women, although you did mention that they could have been 14 and looking 16.
No one had IDs in those days. Yeah.
Last week, The Sun reported claims by David Nicholson, who worked as a director on the show, who, of course, you will have worked closely with. he said he caught Jimmy having sex with a girl in his dressing room, but was laughed away when he voiced his concerns. During the interview, he says, "I was revolted by his behaviour. They all shrugged it off. That's the way it goes. Everyone knew what was going on. That includes senior BBC people, chiefs at the highest levels. There were always girls in Jimmy's dressing room. Everyone would have known about it. All the hair and the makeup people, the wardrobe, the show directors, and the producers."
Well, he did not report anything to me, and he wasn't the studio director. He directed some inserts, and he wasn't at the studio that many times. I can't remember exactly.
So are you saying he's making that up?
Well, no, but I can't say that, because he may have seen something that I didn't see, and he may have reported it not to me, but to someone else. But he did not report it to me.
If you, as somebody had come to you, say he had come to you at that time with those allegations, would you have gone further with those? Would you have done something about it at the time?
Most certainly.
And do you feel that the environment at that stage, at that time, would have welcomed that? Do you think you would have been heard? Do you think you would have been listened to? And would they have done something about it? I mean, at that time, would somebody have reported this to the police, for example, about Jimmy Savile?
I think they should have, yes.
But would they have done? Whether or not they should have or would have done it?
Well, that was up to them, but I certainly would. But I wouldn't immediately. You know the BBC structure. I would take it upwards to my boss, who was originally Bill Cotton, and went through various people to Jim Moyer.
Esther Ranson said in that documentary that she blocked her ears to the claims, and that many people in the BBC at that time did that. I think Esther is on the show at some stage during the course of the week, because she's paying the price, it would appear, for saying something like that, and for appearing, although she says she was very young at the time, and the climate was very different, as we know, and we've discussed that. But do you think that you might have blocked your ears to those claims?
I don't think so. And there wasn't ever a climate where it was acceptable to molest underage females.
But you said that the climate certainly allowed him the attraction to 14-year-old girls.
If they were 14, yes.
But by nature of the show, there were many youngsters on that show.
But the youngsters that were on Jim Will Fix It always had a chaperone, usually in the form of parents, with them.
Well, what about Kevin Cook? Kevin Cook yesterday claimed that, and he was a former Cub Scout, he was sexually assaulted as a 9-year-old boy by Savile after appearing on your show. He says that he became the presenter's youngest victim, that he was lured into a dressing room with the promise of receiving his own Jim Will Fix It badge after appearing on the programme with his Cub Pack. Do you remember this? This was the 44th Newham East Cub Pack. They wrote in about, they wanted to go milk float racing at Brands Hatch.
Yes.
So he says he's now a married father of 2, described how Savile asked him whether he was ready to earn his badge before molesting him and getting him to touch him through his trousers. Kevin said a BBC employee briefly entered the dressing room at one point, although I think we could probably safely say that a 9-year-old wouldn't necessarily know whether that was I'd like to question Kevin on that, because we don't know how he would know that that was an employee at the age of 9. But someone came in. Savile positioned himself to stop anyone seeing what was happening, and the man left the room without intervening. The presenter then issued the chilling threat not to tell anyone about the abuse. No one would believe him over the word of King Jimmy.
Oh, that's horrifying. But then
that happened in the dressing room, and you say it couldn't have happened in the dressing room.
Well, that presumably he was talking about after the recording. Normally Jimmy Savile went home almost immediately after the recording, but he must have been there for a few minutes, I suppose.
So do you say that it was possible that this could have happened?
It's possible, yes.
Gosh. And you were there that whole time, but you didn't see anything, you didn't hear anything. It seems...
No, I didn't see anything, and nothing was reported to me.
Are you sure? I mean, when you see this, are you in disbelief of this happening? I mean, do you...
Well, I know there's such overwhelming evidence of these things happening that they cannot all have been fabricated. But Jimmy Savile was a very clever man, and he seems to have succeeded in hoodwinking a prime minister, the Vatican, several police forces, the NHS, hospitals up and down the country, and some members of BBC staff, including me.
Was he, as you worked with him and knew him, was he a manipulative man?
I'd say he was a manipulative man, yes.
In what way?
Well, he could get people to do things he wanted, such as raise millions of pounds for charity.
And how does it feel for you, having worked on a show like Jim Will Fix It, which up until very recently was regarded very, very fondly by people, to have something that you spent such a long time doing now have such a shadow cast over it?
Yes, I know my reaction to it isn't important, but it's been a terrible shock for me, because in retirement you tell people what you used to do, and then they say, if you say, I produced Jim Will Fix It for 20 years, and the reaction was, oh, how wonderful, we loved that, our children loved that, we always watched it, what a warm, friendly programme, etc. And now, of course, the programme is being regarded as guilty by association. And I want to assure people that were on it that the joy and the fun they had is not gone, it's not diminished. And
many people appear to have got very much more than they bargained for, though.
Possibly one or two, yeah.
And do you think, because there's talk of a great deal of soul searching within the BBC, and calls for investigations, police investigations, obviously internal investigations. So if you don't think that you, as a member of the production team, blocked your ears, do you think that you could be responsible for failing in your duty of care to young audience members, in the fact that Savile may very well have found access to them?
Well, as I say, if you could hoodwink all these powerful people, you could hoodwink me as well. And I don't think that I could have gone around on a busy studio day being an investigator to see if I thought he was doing something untoward, because I never for a moment imagined that he was.
And have you spoken to David Nicholson, the director, about his claims?
No, I'd very much like to. I don't know where he is.
Well, maybe we'll put you in touch.
Oh, please do.
Thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we're back after the break with Dr. Jonty and life-saving advice. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Still to come, we'll take a trip behind the scenes of the Woolpack to celebrate 40 years of Emmerdale. Michelle Ryan is here, plus Dr. Jonty's Guide to First Aid for Children.
But first, here to take us through today's top news stories, Gordon Smart and Daisy Kanji. Welcome.
Good morning.
Well, Savile is on the front page of many papers today. We've just had our discussion there with Roger Ordish, the producer of Jim Will Fix It. What did you think of that?
Extraordinary.
Incredible. If he can pull the wool over so many people's eyes, then he could pull the wool over my eyes, I think, what he said there. This story is going to run and run and run. It's so often that you see in the paper something lasts 3 or 4 days, then dies down, something else happens. Yeah. This is gathering pace as we go on. And over the last 10 years I've worked at the newspaper, this story's been mentioned so many times, and nothing's ever happened. But now, really, the floodgates are open.
Well, we've got Esther Ranson on the show tomorrow. Yeah. I think she obviously is saying that this could very well be the end of all her hard work for her fundraising.
That's incredibly
so we'll talk to her about that tomorrow. Someone else, I don't know whether he's watching, who used to work at the Radio 1, is Ted Beston. Ted Beston was Jimmy Savile's Radio 1 producer at the time. So like Roger, he would have worked very closely with him on a radio point of view. So Ted, if you're watching, give us a call. We'd love to get you on the programme.
I do find all these excuses, alleged excuses, extraordinary, because we all work with producers and with celebrities and with people, and when you work that closely with somebody, you do get a sense of what type of person they are. And I find all these, I didn't have a clue, when there were so many rumours swirling around. I do find it extraordinary that people didn't think, let's ask the question. And of course, the only assumption that most of us come to is you didn't want to know. You didn't want to delve.
Or that it was, and it's very difficult to say these things, or that it appeared to be okay because the girls looked older than 14, and that they were, in our eyes, they were 16 because there wasn't ID at the time.
There's a famous story at The Sun about our journalist who used to speak to Jimmy Savile regularly over a 20-year period, because it was like Simon Cowell during the peak of his career, and he used to ring him up and say, it's Phil here from The Sun, and he would reply and say, she told me she was 16 and she had evidence to prove it. That was the way he answered the phone every single time he answered it to The Sun.
Thought it was
quite
funny.
eerie.
Now, in hindsight.
I mean, at least attitudes have changed, and for that, I think we should be grateful that public attitudes have moved on.
And more and more people are coming
forward,
thankfully. celebrities, let's take celebrities, been a tricky old bunch, because what you see is not necessarily what you get. Many people on the telly do have a tendency to surprise us in future years with things that we find out about them that perhaps we didn't know.
Certainly,
so if you find out in 18 years' time that your father is, it's Jimmy Savile, or it's Justin Lee Collins, or it's any one of those people who you might be surprised to find out is your father.